Welcome to Wealth Preservation Solutions. I'm Elizabeth DeLeo, Director of Family Offices. Kevin Ellman, CFP, our CEO, is joining me today to just talk about some interesting stories and lifetime experiences and how they've related to how he has become a wealth manager over time. And we're looking forward to having some fun today. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, how you doing?
Very well, thank you. You know, it's hard to believe, and I'm not the one to really, try to measure time, right? Because once it's gone, it's gone. But it's really hard to believe that we are about to wrap up 2020 and we're about to begin 2021, obviously, right? That's typically how this works. But the other day I was sitting and thinking about what a year 2020 has been, right? What are we leaving behind us? And the number one perspective that I was taking was as a parent, because I've only been a parent for a short time. And frankly, in the world, there hasn't been a whole lot that's happened in the last 3 years as epic as 2020 has brought us. So what's interesting is I said, while there's so much going on that's very normal for a lot of people when it comes to year-end planning, whether it's holidays or business planning or whatever it may be, I sat and I looked at my 3-year-old daughter and I said, what's happening right now, she's only going to learn about through either stories that her father and I tell, or whatever version of textbook she has. Yeah, I certainly know it's not going to be the one that I had with the hardcover and all of that, but whatever version, she's going to have some pretty significant things that she'll be able to say that she experienced, even though it'll be just through learning. So, in preparing for today's phone call, you and I were talking about many years ago, or, I don't even know to quantify it as many, but your life previous to becoming a financial planner. And a lot of that, your kids have as experiences as well, although their perception might be a little bit different than yours. And so it kind of all came together to me to bring it to us the way we are right now. So, what we're going to be talking about today, right, is where you once were and how that relates to where you are today. So why don't you take us through it?
Okay. So when I first started out making a living, I was a professional musician. I used to play drums for Bette Midler, Barry Manilow, Peter Paul and Mary, Richie Havens, Todd Rundgren, and a bunch of others. And I had a pretty big, big time rock and roll career. And when I tell people that, this was a very good foundation for later becoming a wealth manager. Most people look at me like, what? How can that be? Everybody has this notion that,
So opposite, right?
it's like sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and everybody's a lunatic. But it's really not like that. I spent 10 years practicing 8 hours every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, most of the musicians I know, in fact, they're maybe a little bit nerdy because all we do is they practice, we rehearse, practice and rehearse.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's not as crazy as everybody thinks. What's also interesting is that, many parents want their kids to take sports so they can learn teamwork and hard work and all those kinds of things. But another great way to learn all those skills is by being a musician in a band.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways it's better because rather than the whole goal to beat somebody else at a sport, the goal is to, make beautiful music together.
Mm-hmm.
So when I explain that to people, they go, oh, that sort of makes sense. You have to work hard, you have to be diligent, you have to listen really carefully to the other people. And mostly you have to be perfectly in sync with the other people in the band.
Mm-hmm.
You got to play in the same key, play in the same time, play at the same volume. Everything has to work together. And in some cases, you're playing in a big enough group that there's a conductor making sure everybody does this together.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the skill that really, gave me a foundation for wealth management.
Do you think that your recognition of that as you started to consider what was next for you, because there was that in-between period, between being a musician and being a wealth manager, but, over time you collected this, you had that foundation of a skill set. And do you think once you really took a deep dive in evaluating wealth management as an option for your next step, that the way those two similarities came into play, do you feel like that's really what attracted you to it?
Well, I don't think I thought about it at the time, In between, I had spent 15 years with my father running our family business, Beefsteak Charlie's.
Mm-hmm.
So, I had hardcore business experience, but we sold the chain of restaurants, and I'm looking around, and I don't know why, but when I saw, advertisements for companies that were looking for financial planners, there was something about that really appealed to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really put it into words until, years later. But now our business, we describe it as 360-degree family wealth management.
Mm-hmm.
And just in the last 3 days, I had perfect examples where, a client will call up and say they're working with their attorney and they're changing the way they're going to title some of their accounts. And we have to coordinate that with the investments. And then we have to give the information to the accountant. Then we have to circle back with the attorney to make sure they know that it's done.
Mm-hmm.
And every single thing we do has to be coordinated with at least 3 other professionals.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like being in a band. Instead of having a bass player and a piano player and a guitar player, the band has an accountant, a lawyer, and an investment and an insurance professional. But
Right.
it's just like being in a band.
Right, which is interesting because, most people, I'm trying to figure out how to say this. So most people have multiple advisors, right? So, I'm Joe, business owner, and I have an accountant, and I have an attorney, and I have maybe one or two or more financial advisors. And maybe I have just a personal close friend who I consider to be an advisor. They may or may not be a professional, but it's someone who I trust for advice. But if we take the personal side out of it and just maintain the professional advisor relationships, I, as Joe business owner, may value each of those relationships, but I may not understand the unintentional disconnect that's happening because CPA doesn't know attorney, attorney doesn't know financial advisor, but they all know me. So can you take a minute and just pivot into why the full 360-degree wealth management makes a difference?
Sure. So when we meet clients, just as you said, everybody has a lawyer, everybody has an accountant, everybody has an insurance guy, everybody has an investment guy. They all are dealing with all these different professionals, but they think of themselves as the conductor, and they don't have the accountant talk to the lawyer. They're talking to each professional separately, but they're not really focused on the coordination aspect because that's not how they're trained.
Right.
They're trained in their own business, but they don't really understand the wealth management business.
Right.
So oftentimes they have all kinds of little glitches because the insurance guy didn't talk to the lawyer.
Right.
They didn't make sure that the buy-sell agreement was set up properly, or the investment guy didn't talk to the insurance guy, so they don't have the titling done correctly. But all the problems we find are not that for instance, that the documents are done incorrectly. I mean, the will's a perfectly good will. It's just not properly coordinated with the buy-sell agreement.
Right.
So it's not that their product is wrong. All the problems are as a result of poor coordination.
Right.
So the example I use, imagine you wanted to go build a house, and you hire an architect, and you decide, well, you'll just be the general contractor yourself, but you don't allow the carpenter to talk to the plumber. You don't allow the plumber to talk to the electrician, and nobody can talk to the other guys. What kind of a house would you end up with?
One with leaks.
Right. Exactly. It would be a mess.
Yeah.
So that's what happens with financial plans where there's no coordination.
And it's interesting because coordination is the key to the success of a true financial plan, but also is collaboration, right? Because the communication from the client to each of his or her advisors in terms of what their own individual goals are and objectives, regardless of which spoke of the wheel the advisor is managing, the collaboration and partnership among the advisors is just as important, if not more important. So do you want to take a minute to talk to us about how well you work with the other advisors for our existing clients and what works well?
So that's a great point. So let's say the client, articulates an objective. There might be, 4 different ways to accomplish that objective, and each strategy has pros and cons and is more or less complicated or more or less expensive. So part of what goes on is we have to consider the different options And we may come up with an idea that we think we should employ strategy A, but in further discussion with the attorney, and then the accountant may be aware of tax issues, then we have to go back to the client. And it's this collaborative team effort to come up with a final plan that fits the circumstance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Fits the actual, reality of that client's life.
Right, absolutely. And that's very current, and it's what we're doing every single day. And I want to circle back to the connection of your musical background to how it has just catapulted you into having such a solid understanding and belief in the process that you have right now. So, let's think about a time, and this is obviously you thinking about a time, but again, as I've shared with our audience in the past, I don't have the same stories that you have. But can you think about a time when things were happening as you suspected, as you expected, and then all of a sudden something took a hard left and you had to adjust, and what the outcome was?
Sure. So I was playing drums for Bette Midler, and we were on the Johnny Carson show. So we're playing.
So cool.
Yeah, so we're playing. It's live. It's not taped. It's
Right.
live,
Right.
international television. So
Talk about pressure.
Yeah, you can't make a mistake.
Oh my goodness.
So we're playing "You Gotta Have Friends," which was her big hit.
Yeah.
And usually we have the verse, then another verse, and we go to the chorus, and we go back to the verse, and it's over. So we're playing along, everything's fine. And for some reason, I don't know why, but I can tell she's not going to go to the chorus. And I look over at Barry, and he doesn't say anything, but I can tell he's making a little bit of a face, and I can tell there's something wrong.
Yeah.
So, it's like radar. I don't know how I knew,
Mm-hmm.
but apparently, like normally when she goes to the chorus, she'll wiggle a certain way and raise her arm and, do something like that, go to the chorus.
Yeah.
So I look at Barry and he looks at me, and we realize, nope, we're not going to the chorus. We're going to the bridge.
Wow.
So we just did it. We just play. We go to the bridge. It's not like you can stop on national television and go,
Right.
hang on a second, let me just clarify, where are we going now?
Excuse me, Bette, what exactly is your next step?
Exactly. So, that's teamwork, and you have to listen, suss it out, and just go with the flow and make sure that it works. And it can't be just me by myself.
Right.
I can't just go play the chorus part if Barry decides, well, he's going to play the verse anyway.
Right. That does not music make.
Together. Everybody has to go together.
Right. And it's interesting you say that because, while Bette was essentially driving that bus, right? And maybe sometimes, depending on the song or depending on the group or the artist, that particular driver changes. It could, maybe I'm speculating, could even change throughout a song, right? Like maybe as a drummer, you could be the driver at certain times and other people are following your lead. What I hear through that story is just, number one is confidence, right? Confidence in your skill set, confidence in your partners, confidence in your intuition, because the next step and being brave enough to commit to it is taking ownership over your belief in what is to come. And go ahead.
Exactly right. So generally, Bette is the client. We're going to do what Bette wants to do.
Right.
But there are certain sections where we're playing like a section where the drum part is prominent.
Mm-hmm.
And you're correct. They're going to wait. They're going to follow my lead,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to play something that makes it very obvious what we're going to do next.
Right.
It's
it's like storytelling.
Well, it is. I mean, they call it call and response.
Mm-hmm.
I'm playing something that Barry responds to it, and it's call and response.
Right.
Two things. One is you have to listen ultra carefully,
Mm-hmm.
and be willing to go with the flow,
Mm-hmm.
or you have to lead so confidently that everybody else can follow you,
Mm-hmm.
Easily.
Right.
And then be willing to adapt to changing conditions.
Right. I mean, that in and of itself is being an impactful wealth manager, right? Because listening is the number one skill set that we have to have every single day, speaking to our clients and partners alike.
Yeah. Well, we want to make sure we really understand what the client is trying to accomplish.
Right.
It's, sometimes the two things have to happen. One is you have to listen carefully, because they may be mixing up something that they were told with what they really want.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they don't understand what the options are.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
once they understand what the options are, they may decide, now that you mentioned that, I really would prefer to go that way.
Hmm. Yeah, that
So
makes sense.
it's that, just deciding what to do is a collaborative effort.
Right, absolutely. And what's interesting is that, I by nature am a planner, right? People who know me well may chuckle at that because they know that I'm a planner and that I'm very comfortable with structure and a process, if you will. So, what's interesting is that with having a plan, sometimes people will say when you plan, the powers that be or the powers up above, they laugh because what's a plan, right? A plan is kind of meant to be meant to be derailed or meant to have a little road bump every once in a while. So can you share a story with us around, when everything was going well, except one major thing, but the show went on?
Well, so two things. I do want to comment that even though we make plans, the thing I've learned is that when you're dealing with humans, humans like flexibility and they like control.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, just today, I had a client call. We had a perfectly mapped out plan, but then he changed his mind.
Mm-hmm.
So that's fine. We just
Okay.
adapt on the fly.
Yeah.
So how did I learn how to do that? So this is 1973, and I'm on the road with Todd Rundgren, and we're traveling through the Northeast, playing at different colleges. And we're traveling like in a small minivan, and the equipment is in a truck.
Okay.
So we arrive at the venue first, and we go backstage, we're practicing, we're having dinner, we're getting on our stage clothes, and we're waiting for the truck to arrive. Truck doesn't arrive.
Oh, geez.
So now, it's 8 o'clock, no truck. And it takes like half an hour to set up.
Right. Never
We're like,
mind
"Now what?"
tuning and all of that.
And the audience is going crazy. We want Todd. We want Todd.
Yeah.
So Todd says, well, I guess we have to go out and do something. So he has an acoustic guitar, and the bass player, well, we can, plug directly into something. I think it was the PA system. And there's an actual piano there. So what do we do for drums? So I had my little tiny practice pad, and I had my drum pedal. Why I
That's
had my
so
drum,
random.
I don't remember, but I took the drum pedal and I attached it to a garbage can,
Like a metal garbage can?
a metal garbage can. So I go on stage and I got this garbage can with my drum pedal, and I have my little practice pad, and they're going to put a
Very
microphone,
Sesame Street of you.
and we play songs just like that, and it worked. And then all of a sudden, like in the middle of that, half hour into the show, the truck arrives, and Todd says, "Well, do you want us to keep playing like this, or should we take a half-hour break and let them set up the the stage?" I go, "No, set it up." So
Right.
then we set it up, and then we go back on and we kill it with an electronic set.
That's so cool. And you know what? Everybody in that audience literally had a once in a lifetime experience
That's correct.
because of something that actually went wrong.
Yeah. So you're right. You got to be prepared to take a
Yeah.
left turn.
Hard left.
Hard left,
Keep on
and
going. Well, as always, the music stories are fun. They are just so interesting. It's something that I feel very fortunate enough. I know I'm a little younger than you, but I do feel very fortunate to know the artists that you've played with, and they were a relevant part of, my parents' lives and my childhood. And it's just always so cool to, hear those stories. So we appreciate you sharing them with us, and
it was a lot of
can't
fun.
really get any less of them. So, do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with our audience, as we wind down the year, maybe something that they might want to think about as we embark on the new year?
Well, I think our whole setup is designed to ferret out these, uh, complications from lack of coordination.
Okay.
So we have what we call our stress test.
Mm-hmm.
And basically we take the entire plan and we say, if we had to use this plan today, if we had to follow this will, if we had to follow these beneficiary instructions, if we had to follow the instructions for the insurance policy, what would actually happen?
Mm-hmm.
And when we present this to a client, most people say, whoa, that's not exactly what I had in mind. I thought it was supposed to be this way.
Right.
Well, it was supposed to be that way, but it didn't get that way.
Or your life changed and so did your goals.
That could happen too. So, I would say maybe 1 out of 100 plans that we look at are, okay, everything's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But the vast majority have something that needs to be fixed.
Mm-hmm.
So we say, we'll find out what the pitfalls are, what the errors are, what the potential problems are. We'll give you a little report so you can see it. And then it's up to you. You decide, you want us to fix it? You want to fix it yourself? You want your advisors to fix it? Or maybe you're in good enough shape you don't need to do anything.
Right.
So, and then, we advocate, whether we do it or somebody else does it, a 360-degree approach. You've got to make sure that all the components are properly coordinated, that everybody's talking together, and it works as one cohesive goal to help you, accomplish what you want.
Important. Thank you. And for our audience, anyone listening and watching today, if you'd like for us to complete a stress test for you, you can visit our website, which is wealthpreservationsolutions.com/stress test. You can always just visit our homepage and poke around and learn a little bit more about us. We very much look forward to speaking with you. If you'd like for us to contact you directly, you can text us. You can text WEALTH to 88799. And until then, from our family to yours, we hope you stay happy, stay healthy, and stay wealthy. Bye.
Bye.
For your free copy of Kevin's book, The 7 Biggest Money Mistakes People Make and How to Avoid Them, just text WEALTH to 88799.